So yeah, I'm Austin at Ethereum. This will be about eth.build, kind of rapid prototyping Web3. How many people have heard of eth.build? How many people have used eth.build to prototype something? Okay, cool. So I was wondering if I was going to do an introduction or kind of like poke around at things. Maybe we can kind of do like a hybrid of that because it seems like about 50%. So a quick introduction. You have these nice little blocks that you can sort of just quickly plug stuff in. We've been using a lot of this today, where I can grab a QR code from my phone and then I can, split the string or combine the string and make a CSV and do, what's that? Zoom in, yes sir. How's that? That screen's weird with the like LEDs. It's okay, you can kind of see that, can you read that is a hash? I can't read that. Maybe now? Okay, well, that's about as zoomed as I can get. Okay, so you kind of have these building blocks where you plug an input in and get an output. And, it's a familiar thing, for the last 15 years or so, you could do this with a lot of stuff, but in Web3, it's particularly complicated to build stuff and prototype stuff. So I wanted to make this, it's basically it started as just a tool for me so I can quickly poke at things, and then it became more of like an education tool. So I started building a curriculum for it. So here is the current curriculum, and the curriculum basically is you can load in whatever I'm working on, or you can go watch a YouTube video of like me rapping through doing the episode. So if we want to look at the key pair episode, we can see that okay, I got this key pair box, I'm generating a key pair. Let's just start over actually. So a key pair, right? We can generate a key pair, we get private key out of it, we get an address, right? Cool. And what can you do with the key pair, right? Well, we can sign and recover data, or we can encrypt and decrypt data, and there should be like a little warning that you probably shouldn't be doing encryption with your Ethereum keys. Someone way smarter at cryptography could explain why. I'm thinking it's more like attack surface kind of, but this is probably more for fun than anything. It's kind of fun to encrypt a message and then send a transaction to someone with the data field basically encrypted with their private key, or with their public key. So then they get a transaction, they look at the data field, it looks weird, but then with eth.build you can just quickly wire up a decrypt and see what that message is. It's kind of fun. But sign and recover, these are the important ones. So with the private key we can sign some kind of message, and that's going to come out over here, and then we can basically broadcast that message across the network, and someone else can receive it, and they can derive that was the person that sent that message. I want to do a network demo real quick because it didn't work yesterday. So you should technically be able to publish and subscribe. So if someone else here was working through this, I wasn't sure if we'd be working through this or this was more of a demonstration, but if we were working through this, you could drop these same boxes in on your eth.build, and it should, let's do this, please work. So this totally did not work yesterday. Yep, it did. Okay, cool. So that went across the network. So if you had a laptop up and you went to eth.build and you dropped in this subscribe, not the IPFS subscribe, but this subscribe, you should be able to see please work showing up there somewhere. So basically we've got a key pair, right? And we can sign messages. What can we do with those signed messages? This is about 1986 or so in terms of where we are. Merkle trees kind of popped up, but there's kind of this crypto winter that happens where we have a distributed ledger, we can sign these messages, we can send them across this insecure network, but it wasn't until 2009 or so that the Byzantine generals problem was sort of solved with proof of work. And I get into that in a later episode. Here we go. Here's the blockchain episode, where there's this miner, and he's jamming away at this. And I think the coolest introduction I saw to blockchain was, it was like this HTML version where the guy it had it very visually, right? Have you seen that before? And like you could see, it was just like basically an HTML form for each block, and you see the next one and next one. I should have a link here. And so you can see we just mined this block. So what I'll do is I'll copy that and I'll paste it up here. And the cool thing about that demo is he ends up changing something way back in the thing, and it like breaks everything. So we should be able to do that here too while we're hanging out. Let's see. One thing that I've found that isn't good about eth.build is as I build things out, and Patrick, you probably ran into this too, you just end up with this like giant mess of stuff, right? It's like you're building and it makes sense and it's very visual, and then you get done and you like zoom out and there's like 80 boxes and it doesn't like clearly make sense what is going to what. So I'm trying to get this module system going on where you can drop a module in, and then inside of that module you can set like inputs and outputs. But it's still a bit shaky. So let's wire up this last block just for fun. Let's see. We'll go 2 goes into this guy, so now he should turn into 3. Yep. So he's going to be block 3, and we'll hook our miner up to start working on this block. And I think you run this back into this. There we go. So now the miner is working on the block. And so what we can do though is then we have this like blockchain pointer, right? And it's pointing to the head now, and it's telling us the height is 2, and we could even like go check our balance or something like that, right? But what we're waiting for is for this guy. Oh, he did. Okay, so he mined that block. So basically, we would point the head of the chain there. Now it's 3. My balance would change based on, like Carlos's balance would have gone up there if we were to check it. Let's. I don't know if this works. I kind of want to. If I put in Carlos right here. This probably isn't going to work. Oh, did you know about that, Patrick? So when you drop a button in, you can double click that and it puts it on a timer. So then it just always clicks that button for you. So you double click an action to get a button, and then you double click the button to put it on a timer, and then it just always runs. But anyways, Carlos's balance is -88. Carlos needs to get it together. So the cool demo here, let me zoom out. We can see our 3 blocks. If I get in here and I change some little value in anywhere in that block, instead of Heidi receiving that, it was Heido, and I hit enter, we see all the blocks turn blue. Basically, it kind of illustrates the fact that that data in that block is kind of like cryptographically sealed, and any small changes to that destroys the whole chain, and it kind of explains how the deeper you get in the chain, the more secure it is. And in the demo, in the video, I kind of like duplicate this setup. So I have the chain up to like block 3, but then I have 2 different miners working on getting to block 4, and I kind of explain how the network works. It's decentralized, and you run into issues with the network and uncle blocks and stuff like that. And this is a great way to illustrate how that works. And you can check that out in the blockchain section here. Where is it? Right there, blockchain. So you could watch the video and check it out. This is a really fun one. I showed this off yesterday, is the Byzantine generals. So explaining kind of like the problem of the Byzantine generals and how, it essentially comes down to like this coordination problem or consensus problem between a bunch of generals who have to communicate over this shared network that could be messed with. But I just think this is really pretty. You can kind of visually see all these soldiers working for General Bob to try to find a nonce that creates this arbitrary leading zeros in a hash. And if we get into this soldier, we can see that he's just like crunching away on this hash, trying to find. Since General Bob wants to attack at dawn, he knows that his general is there, so he can work on it. And we kind of can talk about proof of work and what that means. And I get into in the video, I talk about how if General Bob wanted to like tell General Alice, like prove his ability to wage war, he could like cut off the pinky toe of all of his soldier and send it in a wheelbarrow over to Alice. And so when Alice receives a wheelbarrow full of soldier toes and it says, "Let's attack at dawn," then tells Alice, and it's like signed with his keys, so somehow it's kind of anachronistic, but he basically proves to Alice that he has an army and wants to attack at dawn, and it devolves quickly, gets into soldier toe, cutting off. It doesn't seem like a good way to wage war. And then, so all of this is really leading up to the cool stuff that we do, right? Like transactions. So now we can kind of have a transaction block here, and we can use these same, primitives of signing messages and sending them to an actual blockchain. And we can start talking to RPC endpoints, and that's when it kind of really opens up for me and lets me be able to like prototype things quickly. So just up in the crow's nest, we have, let's see, we'll come back to this. Just up in the crow's nest, we were just now trying to figure out, so we had people sending Buffetti to other people, and to be able to receive XP, you have to be whitelisted. And we whitelisted the initial people, but then we had some issues yesterday. We had a lot of issues yesterday, and so people just kind of ended up with Buffetti. So we needed a way to make sure we had XP to people. And so what I was doing was just poking around with, okay, so what do we have here? We've got the XP token, right? So if I go to, let's see, how are we gonna do this? We'll do a file input. Okay, so I just have an upload there, right? And if I go look at this, it's empty, but if I just drag that XP token over here, and this XP token, by the way, is like the artifact that comes out of a compiler, we can kind of see like, oh, shoot, that's an object. Let's go ahead and parse that, right? So now that we have that parsed, we can kind of see, okay, now we want the ABI, so I'll grab a property of that object. What do we want? We want the ABI. Okay, so now I've got the ABI of the contract. So if we want to talk to the contract, we can bring a contract object in. We can drag the ABI in. Okay, there we go. Now we got all these cool things to interface with. We want to know the address and the blockchain. And so the chain is going to be DAI.poa. Is because we're running on XDAI. And the address of this contract is buried in my notes somewhere. Let's see, XP right there. Okay, so, yeah, yes, please. Oh, is that way too small? Yeah, it's like, how's this, good? Okay, so we dropped in our ABI, we parsed it, we pulled out we dropped in our artifact, we parsed it, we pulled out the ABI, just like stuff you find yourself doing as a programmer all the time, or if you're not a programmer, you'd like to be able to just dive in and do that. Like, I parsed so many CSV files in the last 3 days, but it's so nice to be able to just drop one in and have this, and then I can like save this thing somewhere, download it, I can send it as a link, I can download it, I can load it in, so I kind of have this structure now that I could drag in. I can basically drag in any ABI here, or any artifact here, throw in an address, and then start, talking to this contract. I don't know what I can even get out of here. David wrote this, so let's see what I can find here. Let's see who the owner is, right? What kind of decentralization is this? There's an owner of this contract? Yep, that guy. He holds the keys, whoever he is. But we can see that very quickly, right? And that's a really nice thing to see. So what we were trying to figure out was, we were trying to figure out whitelist. So let's see if I can find it. I thought it was right up in here. Anybody see whitelist? There's so many things. What I need to be able to filter through this, right? I need like a box right here where I can start typing whitelist and let it filter through. Okay, whatever. But you can see what's going on here. Let me see if I can find like one that would be a write instead of a read. Oh, sender list. That'll work. This is, okay, so this would be the whitelist of the sponsors and the NPC characters. So now I know that I have the sender list, so I've got an address, okay, but this is another contract. So let's bring in another contract, and let's snag this blockchain guy so I don't have to type that again. It's hard when I'm all zoomed in. Okay, so we'll bring in a new blockchain. The address of our contract will be this guy here, and then we need a new ABI. So I'll kind of stretch that guy out, and I'll go over here and just grab this whole setup, right? This seems to work for us. So then let's drop in, I'm gonna leave it right there, a whitelist. And this should give us another ABI. Boom, there we go. Okay, so here's the whitelist. Now we could check to see if someone is whitelisted, right? Okay, so what should the user be? Let's see if I'm whitelisted, right? So we're in the heat of the moment. It's wartime. Things are breaking all around us. We're able to drop these in. Let's go see if my Buffett DAO contract is whitelisted. It for sure should be false, but let's find out. So let's say I'm gonna need to read a QR, toggle that. Actually, you know what I want to do? I want to put some text in the middle of that so we can see the output. Boop, 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 boop. If you guys have questions, shout them out too. Like, just kind of riffing on this. There we go. Okay, so it's currently false. Oh, it's going to be false no matter what. What I need is a sponsor. Oh well, let's do this first. It's because it's going to be false no matter what I do. Darn it. Bad demo. Okay, so here's my QR code. Boop, boop. There we go. So it reads it in. Oh, that's totally not what I want, but that's fine. Boop, boop. So what I want to do is snag all of that stuff off of there. So I'm down to the address, but it's going to be false because let's see, maybe I have a sponsor wallet that isn't. I got a better idea. Let's change this. Instead of looking at the sender list, I bet there's a receiver list. And let's plug that in and everything else will be the same. Oh, it's so hard to read. You got it? Where is it? Oh, receiver list. Got it. Yes. Awesome. Okay, so let's grab our receiver list instead. That should be an address. Awesome. So instead of this guy, we want to use this guy. Let's see, how am I going to do this? Let's get him over here. Let's pull the receiver list in. Okay, you ready? Ready? Let's put my user in here. Please be true. Yeah, best demo ever. So we just went and talked to a contract to find out that I am indeed whitelisted to receive XP. And this isn't like rocket science, right? Like, if you're a programmer, you've probably done this, or if you code in Web3, you've probably done this a million times. It probably just took you a little longer, and that's the key here is when you're prototyping, you kind of don't know if the thing you're building is even going to be important, and it's nice not to spend days building that thing if you could just crank some ugly thing out just to prove that it either does or doesn't work, or just poke around at it. And so what I was doing is I basically went through this flow this morning just to prove to myself that this works or this doesn't work, and how do we get the Buffett. But what I did was just kind of poke around, and then once I have this, I can save this and go back to it any time for reference, but then I start coding. I paste in my code and start writing. And I think this is called a no-code workshop, but definitely we got to do just a tiny bit of smart contract. I got 4 minutes left. Smart contract development, right? This is a lot of fun here. So let's create a smart contract with a public function called set, and send in a string something. And we'll set our, let's just call this phrase, I don't know. We'll set phrase to something. Okay, compile, what am I missing? Oh, memory. Okay, cool. So we're kind of rapid prototyping a contract. I should just have it auto deploying. We'll see the address change. Okay, so we just deployed this contract to, I think it's to a test. Yeah, okay, so I have a test chain. If you use eth.build, there's this nice test faucet and test chain where there's just a shared instance of Ganache running on my server and everyone can use it. But it's really fun actually to be able to have a jam session. If a few of us had laptops and we were all working on this, we would all be on the same RPC, we would all hit the same test faucet. I could have my contract up. I could even be publishing my contract to the network and you could be listening to it. And so we could all be grabbing the contract and working with it. And so what you could do is from the network, you could grab all this information here and you could ask for the phrase in the contract and it would be hello world. ooh, 3 minutes, let's see if I can do this. Okay, here's the set function. It's gonna be a little different though, okay? So when you're doing a get from a contract, that's easy. We're reading data, we don't have to do anything. But when you do a set, you actually have to make a transaction to that contract. So let's see, let's get a phrase going. And you have to get this just right. It's like pretty picky. I remember watching your video, Patrick, where it's like, let's see, like that hex string is not there. What am I doing wrong? And you have to like look back. You have to kind of like sanity check everything. So I need to do a better job of providing like feedback, like, oh, this is empty, but this is an object. So, ETHDenver, woo. There, and we can see now, okay, so what is going on here? This is the call data that I would need to pass into a transaction to the contract to be able to change that phrase. So I have this transactor here. We can dive in and peek at it. It's basically just a transaction with a bunch of inputs that does things like to GUI and kind of helps me get everything done, and it'll send a transaction. So let's use that transactor to send a transaction to our contract. Okay, so we're going to send a contract. We're going to send it a 0 value. Okay. So there's not going to be any ETH that goes along with this other than the gas that we pay for. Now the data field. The data field will be all this hex, and then hopefully we'll get a transaction out of that when I hook a button up to this. And this is kind of a hack right now. You can't do actions into modules. There we go. Okay, so we just put a transaction on chain to set that, and hopefully when I hit this button, we will see ETH woo. All right, woo. All right, I think that's it. Any questions about eth.build or what I would really like to do in the future is be able to get this in a state where it's like all of these are kind of like this is like my playground here. Like I can bring in MetaMask or I can bring in OpenSea. I would love for this component to basically take up the whole page, right? Like go to the DeFi section and grab an RDAI box and have that just be everything you need. Like wire just what you need to it. Like grab a Uniswap box and put in the token address or something like that. So a lot to do here. I think it'd be really cool since the code is like this very small, like do this on execution. Take this input, do this, and spit it out. I could basically like bounty out that little piece of code, right? Like IPFS is broken right now. I should just create a bounty for someone to fix the IPFS stuff. But so thank you. Any other last closing questions?
Yes. So one of the problems I have using this is that the basic functions, I don't understand how to use them. Like how to actually create a new diagram right now. I don't know how to do this.
How do you create like one of these, like a new box?
I'm done with this. I want to save it. Now I want to start
a new
one.
Okay, so let's save this guy and let's download him. And then I can just select all and delete. I can like hit that button and delete. There's a few different methods to just clear everything. But just like, maybe I need a button in here that's just like, give me a new one. And it just like clears everything for you. Oh, you hit the space button. Yeah, the space bar brings up that search, and there's also a plus button over in the top right. Yeah, this is like an early prototyping tool for me too. This is good feedback.
All right.
So I need to do a better job of like making it clear in my videos of like what I'm doing to bring that up.
Okay, we're sort of running out of time, but you can continue the question over here.